Woodland animals in watercolour are one of my favourite things to paint, and it can be a very rewarding experience for beginners and beyond. It can drag you out of your comfort zone if you've never tried them and teach you surprising things about watercolour. So grab your paintbrushes, light a candle, and let's get into it. By the way, I am Fiona and this is Drawings in a Drawer. On here we are watercolour crazy, so if you are too, be sure to click on that notification bell so you won't miss any of my future videos here on YouTube. Okay, now let's get into it. After quite a long time, I have stepped outside of my beloved watercolour sketchbooks and I am painting on an Arches cold-pressed paper block which I set up in a tabletop easel kindly sent to me by Meaden. I have been wanting to paint with watercolour on an easel for some time because I thought it would push me to be more expressive and daring. Actually, I found out there are much bigger benefits to painting on an easel, but more on that later. This sturdy H-frame beechwood one is going to be my first attempt ever at painting this way. I was happy there was no need to assemble anything, as this just slid out of the box onto my desk and all I had to do was adjust the angle I wanted it at. I was rather hesitant when I started painting with this juicy brush, but I quickly found out that the first benefit of painting on an easel is that the painting is so much closer to my face. Why did I not think of this before? If you've been following me on this channel, you will know I really struggle with keeping my head out of the frame because I like to get right in there when I'm painting details. I think I'm going to be painting every larger piece on this easel as it also feels like a more natural position to paint in and one that puts less strain on my back and shoulders. There must be a reason why almost every artist owns one. And I will have a 12% discount code for this very same one in the description box, but now, rabbits. Drawing rabbits is easy enough as they can be broken down into very simple geometric shapes. Just think of them as a series of rectangles and triangles. Keep your pencil sketch light, and if you want to do exactly what I did, go in with a watery mix of cerulean blue, one of my go-to colours. I'm going to be keeping the footage quite raw so you can see every step. Here I just go into the shadow areas with this blue, which will work wonderfully to create a white rabbit. I then use my clean damp brush to push out the blue towards the mid-tone areas, and these are the areas where the shadows aren't as deep. And then I use a cool red or pink like Madder Lake Red Light or Rose de Ray to go into the ears, the nose and the mouth area. As you see, the colours, aided by the tilt of the easel, blend together as they drip downwards, and what blues and reds can do when this happens never fails to have me spellbound. Since I'm using the pink, I hop around from rabbit to rabbit and start painting them as a whole, which immediately makes the task feel less daunting and 100% more fun. I strongly advise you to use good watercolour paper like Arches because in my opinion it is the most forgiving watercolour paper out there, and let me specify the cold pressed. The hot pressed or smooth Arches, well, that's a story for another day. The reason I have come to love painting woodland animals so much is because it's a very intuitive process. I suggest you try white rabbits to begin with because since the white of the paper is going to act as our white as our base colour, they come to life much quicker and that is very satisfying. As you see, I just keep using that blue to create shadows in all the rabbits just by checking where they are in my reference image. Almost like a random painting by numbers without the numbers, of course. I forgot to tell you how important it is not only to know your brushes well as if they were your besties, but to remember to change brushes as you move to smaller areas. I switched to a round number 10 as I went into the rabbits, and this will hold less water in its bristles, and also there would have been no point in using the quite massive mop brush I started off with, as that would have pushed the paint and water beyond my sketch lines and it would have given me less control. And soon it was time to go in with my third colour, and that is a raw sienna, or you can use a yellow ochre as well. With the blues and reds, this quite literally works a milky magic that is slowly turning into a white rabbit's fur. As with everything else, fur will reflect the lights and colours around it, and this goes for white fur as well. Even as I go into this rabbit, which will turn out to be the darkest of the group, I am still starting off with cerulean blue. And my brush strokes, though hesitant, and you can see that as I've left the pauses and all that hesitation in the footage for you to see, tend to be quite bold when I lay them down. And I encourage you to try and do the same thing, to take the same approach. I will gradually blend it with the reds and basically continue this way across all the rabbits. When I need a darker value or colour, I either mix the cerulean blue with whatever red I am using, or I add a pinprick of neutral tint or Payne's grey, and you will see me using this colour for the blank spaces between the rabbits because the painting would look flat without that extra depth in the background added to it. Before filming this, I looked up information about painting with watercolour on an easel, and I really didn't find much. So as usual, what I say is going to be based on my own personal experience, and what I can say is that there is basically zero problem when it comes to water pooling. That just doesn't happen, and you're immediately able to see the flow and movement of water and pigment. I thought this would be very messy, but rather it's the opposite, as since it's all going in one direction, downwards, it allows for better blending and predictability about what's going to happen. Also, if you're using good paper, not even when the easel is almost vertical does the flow of the paint get out of control. You will have seen me having to manually tip the easel towards me to get some of the drips. Not all, but some of them. The other thing is I am able to see the whole composition the whole time I am painting. This is so important, and I totally underestimated the value of being able to do this until I started this painting. I think it helps you stay connected with the painting for longer. I very often lose enthusiasm for a piece when I've been working on it too long, but I didn't get that feeling with this one because it was always on display whenever I walked by, like a reminder. I think the worst after several years of painting with watercolour for me is painting on a loose sheet or on a block on my table. For me, it's either watercolour sketchbooks or full-blown painting on a nice sturdy easel. I won't talk about the portrait part of this piece today, as that's not the topic of this video, and there's plenty of that if you look back on my channel. And also I don't want to spread it out too much, but I used the same colours I used for the rabbits, just in different proportions in the mixes, except for a different red I used in the hair, that is. After I took some time away from the painting and stepped back, I knew where my focus areas were lacking, and I went in to add more detail with slightly thicker paint that will offer us that control we need in the later stages of our work, but it will also fade less once the watercolour has dried, ensuring that those darker values stick. If you've watched this far into my video, I'm sure you're probably a good candidate to become part of our watercolour community with monthly live sketching and painting challenges, and have many recorded tutorials to watch. You can find all the different ways to connect with us in the description box, and if you try this painting, I would love for you to share it by tagging me on Instagram at the handle drawings in a drawer, all in one word, or in our private Facebook group, which I will also link below. So it will be quite clear by now that I used the same steps for every rabbit. I start to tie things up, especially when I go into shadows that need to be darkened or areas that need to be brighter, like for in the ears, and especially into the eyes. And with the eyes, my trick is to always paint the whole iris and then lift out the bottom part with a clean, damp brush. You just press it down and lift it. This creates that sense of light shining through, and it gives the idea of the roundness of the eye. It truly makes all the difference, so be sure to always take this step. The cherry cake moment of adding highlights with white gouache, and then I lay my easel flat, as I'm going to be painting a dark background, mostly of neutral tint, and I don't want any of that dripping all over my white rabbits. So at this stage, my painting surface needs to be horizontal. I love how the background turned out, as I got a lot of beautiful blooms and cauliflower effects and hard edges that are much easier to obtain on cold press paper. By the way, if you've been trying it on hot press and it's not been working, that's possibly why. And they just accentuate that magical and mysterious fairy tale look I was going for. This is all from me for today. I hope this video was useful. Please leave a comment, as I always love to hear what you have to say and I always get back to you. Check the description box down below this video if you want to join our very fun art community, or if you want to gift a membership for Christmas to someone who loves art and watercolour in particular. Also, be sure not to miss your 12% discount on this Meaden easel by using the code and link I have left down below. I will see you next week. Bye for now.